here, the start of 2 hours NBA DFS conversation. Joined today, it's been way too long. Mentioned pre-show, myself and Tim, Tasteful Tides. I believe were you late swapped in, Tim? I feel like I thought Stevie was supposed to be on tonight.
I'm an emergency call up, Dean. You know, when they need the emergency starter, you know, when everybody else has been, you know, taxed by the ninth inning, they call me in. Because I can play all the positions, Dean. You know, like I can play all 9 positions. So you know, they called me in.
Who was the guy that famously played every single position in the game in the 80s? I think it was a Cardinal. Like in one game, they had some fun, and he played every position in the game. Somebody in chat might know, man, and I'm sure like I got a machine in front of me. It's wild. I can just type that in, and somehow it'll just pop up. It's the Google. The kids, it's all the rave these days.
I thought you did Bing.
If I'm feeling contrarian, I would go Bing, but yeah, somebody in chat's got to know the answer to this before we kind of use the cheat code here. But yeah, you're a master. What is it? A jack of all trades, master of none. No, that's Aziz Ansari. That's what I'm thinking of. That's somebody totally different. But like a Miguel Rojas type. How about that? Does that work? He could play all with the diamonds.
What about Brock Holt? Doesn't he play every position?
I feel like he's like a third baseman. I guess they can throw him at first. I don't know. According to the chat, Bert Campaneris. I thought that was Bert Campaneris in 1965. That's the most recent person to do it.
See, nobody remembers the utility guys, and I feel like that's where I'm going to go down in expert, you know, RG expert history. You know, I play all the parts, but no one's going to remember me.
You are remembered. You've been missed. When we went to Nashville, I was like, "Where's Tim? I want to hang out with Tim. I want to see where Tim's at." And you, unfortunately, you couldn't make it. Understandably so, but you know, we've yet to meet in person. But yeah, you were definitely missed for sure. Like I said, I've noticed, I've acknowledged that we've not done shows in a while for whatever reason. I'm happy to cross paths again. And that's the answer I was looking for, Derek. Jose Kendo is the guy I was thinking of. I'm not sure if he pitched, but I'm fairly certain he played every position in a game, all over the diamond, like mid to late 80s. The Sklar brothers, if you know the Sklar brothers, the comedians, they're big Cardinals fans. And I guess jokingly, they've tried to get Jose Kendo into the Hall of Fame. Like it's never going to happen. But they had this like campaign going many, many years ago. He played every position except catcher. Okay, I guess he didn't catch. But yeah, there you go. Shout out. I don't know who the modern day Jose Kendo would be, but there you go. It's a Monday. My days are all sort of confused now because I'm about world's smallest violin playing for me, but I've been working serious on the weekend, so no days off for your boy. Been grinding every single day. Back on the saddle today as far as NBA DFS. Depending on where you're shopping, the DK slate, man, it is. And we were looking at this last night on Sirius. Like DK just either they drop the ball or they don't care. Just, you know, they are tanking just as much as the Pacers. I don't want to say the Pistons are tanking. I think you're just bad. And it's just, this is what they're doing their best. They're trying. They're already locked into their spot, so they don't need to tank it. The work's been done. They've lost 11 games in a row. They have the number one spot as far as the least amount of wins in the league. They have seven wins. They're behind 7 wins on Charlotte, right? So they're 15-53. Charlotte's got the 4 spot. Charlotte's got 22 wins. Like they're locked in. They're not going anywhere. They have the most possible potential ping pong balls. We're running this back. The first time was so much fun. The sequel is always as good as the original, right? It's going to be gross. And like the guys are so cheap. And we'll talk about the players that are rolled in and rolled out. I think the most interesting part of the slate, and I want to do an overarching conversation. If you're running optimals right now, it's Pistons, it's Pacers, and it's studs. And it's very, very clear. Figuring out what studs, obviously you can swap those up and things like that. But that's what the best lineups are spitting out right now. But the cloud on this slate, that's a 7:00 start. I assume we're going to know about Kyrie. Kyrie is currently questionable 7:30 game. If he doesn't go, it looks like it's going to be Jaden Hardy season again. He looks like a fabulous play. Tim Hardaway looks like a solid play as well. It got bumped up a little bit, but not enough. And then even later, I don't know if we're going to get this news, Giannis Antetokounmpo against Sacramento in a game that has the highest total I think I've seen the entire season. Correct me if I'm wrong, if not the highest on the Family Feud board of the highest totals, 244.5. Milwaukee at Sacramento, 10:00 start. We've not seen Giannis play for several games now. He's got that wrist. I think it's like, picking that fork in the road, and like they're all good plays. in Indiana, Detroit. Indiana can get even better if Buddy Hield is out. We already know their top two or three guys are out. It could be even more as far as a plethora of options. So it's like, how much are you willing to commit to Indiana, Detroit? There's more than like 9 good plays. There's more than 8 good plays. You should like your lineup today. There's no reason to be goofy or ambitious or crazy ambitious. You don't have to tell yourself a story that maybe this guy can do something in 20 minutes. I mean, that's the way I see this slate. Feel free to add on and like where you're at. And again, obviously 7:00 tip. We're going to know some more stuff. I think we'll know about Kyrie. You never really know. That is a national TV game. Does that make him want to play more or less? Who knows? We'll see. Phoenix Golden State's the back half of the national TV schedule. But yeah, overview here. I think it's really, really clear what we're looking at as far as the slate. I'm curious to get your thoughts. What do you have for me?
Yeah, this is going to be, parts of this slate are going to be extremely chalky. This first game of the night, Pacers Detroit. I've in my lineup HQ blurbs I did today, I recommended that you should be making a rule that you should be having min 3 Indiana. That's what I would say. I think you need to make that rule that you're going to be doing min 3 Indiana today. That's whether Buddy's in or not, doesn't matter. I'm still making that rule. Min 3 of Indiana. It's it's not a question of are you going to be playing this game? It's what are you going to be playing around it? Because if you look at lineup HQ and you look at the optimal rates for this game, they're sky high, and they're sky high for a reason. Like, these guys are gonna be in the optimal lineups. Do I know the exact 5 or 6 potential people? No, I don't know the exact 6, but it's there. This is a smash spot. So the bottom line with this slate is how are you going to get different elsewhere? That's the key to this slate. It's your spend ups that are going to be winning this slate. It isn't going to be this value spot. I can't sit here and say to you, fade Isaiah Jackson. No, I'm not gonna say that to you. I'm gonna say to you, play 20 out of 20 or 150 out of 150 Isaiah Jackson today. To me, he's a lock button. Then we can go through some of the other players on Indiana, but we're gonna get a ton of exposure to this. And if Buddy Hield sits, we're gonna get even more value. So, it's really the key to this slate is trying to get different with your higher end options.
By the way, Michael in chat, another point, it's on my mind, but I just didn't mention it in kind of the opening. If Gobert doesn't play, then it's Naz Reid season, right?
Yes.
He's questionable too. And that's another one where we might not know that at 7:00. And I was going to say, I don't think Isaiah Jackson's a lock button. I think he's an awesome, awesome play. And I'm not here to say you shouldn't play Isaiah Jackson, but you can also tell yourself a story. He does get in foul trouble. He does get handsy, and there are backup bigs available. That's one thing that Indiana does have, right? They have Brissett there. They have Jalen Smith there. They could dust off Daniel Tice if they want to dust off Daniel Tice. So they're a little bit deeper. Would
you make a rule that if you don't have Isaiah Jackson, that you would have one of these other backup bigs for Indiana? Right?
I think that's a really interesting idea.
Like if you're going to tell yourself that story, like Isaiah Jackson could have foul trouble. Yeah, and you're right, Dean. You're not wrong. Jackson gets into foul trouble. He, theoretically he can bust. Anybody can bust. He's going to be extremely high owned. But then what do you do with your lineup, right? Do you make a rule to say, if I'm not going to play Isaiah Jackson, am I playing Jalen Smith? And I personally, I think you should do that. Like, if you don't want to lock button Isaiah Jackson, I think you gotta have his backup in there. That's what I would do.
Fantasy points per minute this season: Jalen Smith at 1.09, Isaiah Jackson 1.08 DK. So they're both really, really strong fantasy point per minute players. What was interesting is, it's funny, I was going to ask you, can you play them both? Was another question I thought about. They did cross over a little bit.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that. Kind of just looking at the slate, like being like, if I was making 150, like how many of these guys, like, can I play Smith and Jackson together? My first instinct is no, but that could be wrong. I mean, it's I wouldn't get too I wouldn't get too heavy into that idea of playing both. I really want to be really, really heavy on Jackson. And then if you don't want to go all in, those are the lineups that you play Jalen Smith with. That's kind of where I'm at, but that's no guarantee.
Let me ask you this. Well, actually, you know what? We'll probably know this as far as Naz Reid. That's a 7:30 East Coast game. I forgot for a second that Minnesota was in Atlanta tonight. So theoretically, we should know about Gobert at 7:30, right? At 7:00, right? We should know about that news. I think Naz is a better play than both of them if Gobert is out, and I'm pretty sure our if then backs that up. We're giving, if Gobert happens to be out, we're giving 38 points. I'm rounding up a little bit, 37 and change to Naz Reid. So he's a better play than both those guys, both the bigs as far as Indiana. A little bit more expensive, I think.
Well, he's definitely better than Jalen Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And yeah, I guess in theory with our projections, he's better than Isaiah Jackson. But I personally, in cash games, you're gonna want both.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, you're probably gonna figure that out. And Jackson is center and center only. Nas is power forward center, so that certainly makes
and then FanDuel Jackson's only power forward, and then I can't remember what Reid has been, and then Reid's center. Only center. So it's really just a flip flop, and neither one of them are too expensive on either site. So really, if you're playing cash games and you're not worried about ownership, then you're going to want both of those guys.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about tournaments, but yeah, and I'm probably going to have. Again, I'm just trying to think of the if-then stuff, and it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, depending on how you like to embrace variance and embrace risk versus reward. It will be really interesting if Dallas was playing at 10 o'clock tonight, if Minnesota was playing at 10 o'clock tonight, because the other part is you might be all locked in as far as your spots. Like you might be fully booked because you're playing too much Indiana and too much Detroit, and they're all good plays. But if stuff opens up later, it's like, oh no, now I can't play these guys that are fully smash plays as well.
The thing is, though, what we do have available at 7 o'clock and 7:30 is really good. So I don't know if I'm necessarily concerned about locking up all my spots and then not being able to adjust to whatever news. Like, let's say, I know we're jumping way ahead, but I think it's important. Let's just say Giannis sits. Okay, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. I mean, yeah, they're great, but they're not exactly free. It doesn't cause that ripple effect of these tremendously cheap people that you would rather have over this Indiana Detroit team.
There are no must plays if Giannis sits on Milwaukee. Middleton's a good play. Holiday is a good play. And like I said, the prices are baked up too. And nobody else really stepped. Like Portis has gotten a big price jump of late. We've seen Lopez, who's been fabulous. And I'm not necessarily going to gravitate on this slate to Grayson Allen or Connaughton or Carter, any of those guys. But what if I want to play Giannis? What if I have Giannis in my lineup? And that's the thought process I had, because I can run Giannis at Sabonis if I want to do that. Like that seems like a lot of fun, right? Huge total. The two big fan, or even Fox, however you want to, depending on what you're looking for as far as positionality. But that's something that might ruin me, and I don't really know what to do with Giannis.
There's no pivot for Giannis. Like if you're sitting there with a standalone Giannis at power forward, center, or util,
Sabonis, I guess, or
Sabonis.
Curry, if you have a utility spot. You have the Phoenix Golden State game. Maybe you set yourself up for a 2v2.
That's what I would do. If you want to do that, you'd have to set yourself up with a 2v2.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, you just eat the salary and go from Giannis to Sabonis, and on this slate, you can kind of sort of somewhat argue that salary doesn't matter, right? If you want to make that argument, you can kind of, if ever there was a slate doesn't matter as far as salary, right? It's this slate, I think.
I see what you're saying, but I don't really agree with that statement. It's because the slate's going to be decided by the higher end guys. So the more expensive pieces, I think, are the most important decisions, because we know of like 3 or 4 kind of like free square plays, and we're essentially playing a 4v4 today. and making sure that you understand the ownership of those more expensive, 4 players. To me is the most important part of the slate.
And in the off chance we don't know about Kyrie until after 7:00, like, will you plug in some Hardaway? Will you plug in Jaden Hardy? They bumped him up from 3-1 or whatever he was, but now he's just 4K on DK. I think he's a really, really strong play. On FanDuel, he's 4-5. I think he's just, in the absence of we know Luka's gone, obviously. No Luka, no Kyrie. Everything opens up. Josh Green looks really good, too. I think it's Green, it's Hardaway, and it's Hardy. Do you have any sort of plan for that? Or you just think, like, you assume we'll know? There's got to be some national reporters at the game. It's an ESPN game. I imagine we'll know by 7:00 as far as Kyrie's status. But is there any sort of plan in place for that? Because I think Hardy becomes, I think, a better play than Duarte, or if not a better, but right there with him, right? If you're kind of doing like this guy
better than Duarte, yeah. So the Hardy situation for me is if it's like 655 or 658 and we still don't know, that's going to be the gamble of, do you want to add in like an extra Detroit player or like an extra Indiana player, right? Like, you could gamble and say, don't add in that extra player and wait for the Hardy news, because I would like to play him. I don't really like Hardaway. Hardaway has a ceiling, but I'm not going to like adjust my night for Hardaway, but maybe Hardy is a guy that I would adjust, kind of like how I build that first game.
Hardy, 13 potential assists last game, by the way. I think he only like 3 or 4. So there was some upside that left on the table. Of course, he can score as well. On the season, Hardy's usage is, 24%, which is really, really strong. Christian Wood's got a 26% usage as team. Unfortunately, in order for that to matter, you got to be on the court. And I think
I'm not playing Christian Wood.
And there was not positive comments post game from Jason Kidd, basically saying, like, this is what it is right now. Like, Kleber's our guy, Powell's our guy, and there's only so many minutes to go around. So
they're gonna play Wood. They're gonna play Wood like what, 24 minutes?
I think 24 is optimistic. I don't think.
Okay, right, like 20 minutes. I mean, it's like I just don't see a scenario other than, getting to random injury, foul troubles for the other bigs. Like, I see no reason that Wood can really get there today.
We're projecting him for 17 tonight, for what it's worth. We're also projecting Kyrie in, but we saw last game Kyrie out didn't necessarily delegate more minutes to Wood.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking about. Was that game where okay. Yeah, so 17 minutes, no way. You can't play him at that.
Okay. Anything else we should say as far as the slate overarching? Again, like the good stuff is very, very clear. Figuring out the studs will be an interesting conversation. And I thought something you said at the top as far as locking in 3 Indiana. I don't know. Again, if things crack a certain way, I don't think you have to do that. I'm going to play at least 2. I'm almost sure of that.
Would you do if you're making 20 teams? Would you make a rule min 2?
Yes.
Yeah. See, yeah. I'm really leaning min 3, but I'm totally could be wrong.
Because there's Pistons. There's going to be a couple Pistons probably that are good. There's there's the news. If we get Naz, if Gobert sits, if Kyrie sits, now I gotta think about Hardaway. I got to think Green looks like an awesome play. Hardy, awesome play. Naz, awesome play. It's just what if you can pay for.
What if Buddy sits? Does that change?
Yeah,
you're thinking.
So they do have what? They have 10 or 11 bodies right now. I think they have 11. They would be down to 10. Let's knock that game out. That's the first game. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
If the people are not aware, and we're kind of hinting at it, like, let's just tell them exactly who's in, exactly who's out. For Detroit, there's no Jaden Ivey. Over the weekend, Marvin Bagley hurt his ankle, so he's gone for a couple games. Alec Burks unavailable with the foot. No Beef Stew, no Isaiah Stewart. We might not see Bogdanovich the rest of the season. Who knows? Hamidou Diallo's gone. Detroit's down to, I believe, 10 bodies. And amongst those 10 bodies, it's like Jared Roden, Buddy Boeheim, Omen Ura. We have projected to draw the start there for Detroit. Indiana, Halliburton, number 1 guy, gone. Number 2 guy, Miles Turner, gone. Benedict Mathurin, gone. The backup, TJ McConnell, gone. And then Buddy Hield, I'm a little bit concerned about Buddy Hield if he plays, for the record. Like, I think Indiana wants to lose. Here's the thing.
That's the thing. I think he's going to sit.
I do too. It's congested as far as ping pong balls, so they can fall back a little bit. It's kind of packed in there, but you really have to bring your A game to lose to the Pistons. The Pistons have lost 11 in a row, and what they're rolling out today, it's really hard to lose basketball games against Detroit. Indiana's going to try, though. And this is a rematch of the last game where Buddy played too good and played too much, and the Pacers beat him. I don't think he plays. Like, why would they give him the designation?
I don't understand why they'd play him. And if he sits, then obviously it's Andrew Nembhard's season.
It already is. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But even more now. It's Isaiah Jackson's season. It already is, but it's even more now. So we've got two like lock button plays on this slate. And for me, I think you should be adding in another one to your scripts. And for me, that's why it's a min 3. It's a combinations of Duarte, Jalen Smith, Aaron Nesmith even. It's like Jordan Nora. It's like that. That's why I feel like I really want to have that third Pacer. Excuse me.
We have a what if set up if Hield does not play. Nembhard, I'm just going to run off the projections. You let me know. I can't really jump back and forth, but Nembhard will be projected about 35, 36 DK points. What is that a difference? Maybe a couple points, a point or two? What does he get?
Two.
Yeah, Duarte 30, 31. Is that a couple points for Duarte?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Isaiah Jackson probably doesn't change much, 32 and change. What is his projection?
Yeah, that's about the same.
Brissett about 21, 22, and he's like one of those guys that theoretically he could put up 40 and you wouldn't be shocked.
That's a pretty big jump. That's a pretty big jump. Duarte's jump is actually like 3 or 4 points, which is pretty big too.
Jalen Smith we're projecting for 24 points, Noir for 27, Naismith 25.
Yeah, Noir, that's like a 10-point increase.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like if Buddy sits, I think it's clearly a min 3 for him. Then if he doesn't sit, I guess I would say, conservative. If you want to play conservatively, it's a min 2. But I still want to do min 3.
I guess what I'm saying is say you have 8 spots on DK, 3 Pacers. Let's say Gobert doesn't play. That's Nas. That's 4. Let's say Kyrie doesn't play. You get at least one of those Dallas guys. That's 5. All the Pistons, you got to have 1 Piston. Right now you're down to 6. I think you have the money for at least 2 stars, maybe 3 stars. So now we're at 9. So I think you're kind of boxing again. I'm not here to say you can't play 3, and I'm certainly going to play some 3, but I don't know if I feel like I absolutely have to, depending on how dominoes fall. But it's really, really good. Could you power rank your favorites? And of course, ownership's going to reflect this as far as ownership in this game. DK wise, Nembhard 41%, Duarte 41%. I know he wasn't good in this matchup last game. I don't care. Isaiah Jackson 40%. Buddy's currently at 5. He's like over 7K. And he's been getting, if you look at his rotations, I was looking at this the other day, and 30 minutes we're projecting for him. I don't know, man. Like he just second quarter specifically, just losing a ton of minutes in the second quarter. I know a part of that is because Noir has been playing well. I don't know how committed they are to having Buddy play 30 plus minutes in this game if he plays any minutes at all. Those are the 3 big ones: Nembhard, Duarte, and Jackson as far as ownership. You have a ranking system amongst those 3. It sounds like you're going to play all 3, which I understand.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's number 1. I think he's got to be really, really close to a lock button play, no matter how many lineups you're making. Then it's Nembhard for me. Then it's Duarte, especially if Hield sits. Like if Hield sits, then it's Nembhard, Duarte, Jackson. Noir is going to be super interesting if Hield sits. And then Jalen Smith. And I think that if you're making enough teams, you could play Smith and Jackson together. But I wouldn't get too crazy with that idea.
Yeah. If you're talking about, would you go out of your way to put a rule in it, or just let it see what happens organically?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would make a rule about it. Like I wouldn't, because I think that Smith might end up popping, optimals. So like, I wouldn't want it to just organically come up too much because I don't think it's going to be, in my eyes, the most optimal strategy. So I would want to put a limit on that.
Question in chat. What's up, chat? Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Helps us out a ton. Lets us know we're doing okay and keeps us in the algorithm. Hey, Chief's there too. What's up, Chief? All right, ran some optimals, not terribly surprising. It's 3 Pacers in the first one, 2 Pistons, 2 studs, and one kind of in the middle. They're asking kind of like, what is a stud? And that's a good question because is the stud Donovan Mitchell? We remember we had that conversation earlier in the year. We think he's a stud?
Well, no. That wasn't the conversation. It was, is he a superstar, Dean?
Oh, okay.
He's definitely a stud. But is he a superstar? That was, and I don't want to go down that. We can't. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that, Dean. And I don't want to go back to that. Okay.
We can make time if you really want to do a little.
No, we could have our own show about that, Dean.
Yeah. So it's 2 studs: Trae Young and Tatum, and then Hardaway, who would only look better if the absence of Kyrie. I'm trying to see if we have it. Can you get 3 studs? You really can't get 3 studs. Kyrie and Tatum and an Indiana-Detroit stack. That's not even okay. I guess 3 studs. I misspoke. I shouldn't say 3 studs. You can get 2.5, right? I see Hero, De'Aaron Fox, and Tatum. That's 2.5 studs.
And Hero's questionable, right? Pretty sure.
I don't think so. Did I miss that?
Oh, I thought he had the fish.
Oh, if I missed that information, it's certainly possible. Is he ill?
Maybe I misread that.
Oh, Siri's talking to me right now in my ear. I don't know what I said, but I don't know. Can you hear me now?
No, I guess he must have been removed from the. He must have been removed from the injury report. Never mind. I think he was. Okay. I think he was on it earlier. My bad.
They were playing games with Lowry and Caleb Martin are both now good to go with their knees, but as far as I can tell, Hero is fine. So that's like 2.5 studs, right? Tatum, Fox, Hero.
Right.
So 3 is depending on what you call a stud. Yeah, it's just not happening, but you can get 2.5. Hardaway.
I do want to talk about Tatum real quick, if you don't mind. If you play 3 Pacers and a Piston and Jason Tatum, you're gonna be duped 1,000 times. So that that's going to be like overwhelmingly chalky in GPPs, and that's what I was talking about at the top of the show. Like, it's fine if you want to load up on Pacers, it's fine if you want to get a couple Pistons, but it's the other part of the slate where you have to pay attention. I really can't sit here and say to you, play 3 Pacers and a Piston and Jason Tatum. That's gonna be that's your cash game build. Like, if you're playing cash, that's fine. But if you want to win like a large field GPP, you've got to do other things. You've got to figure out a way to get different. You got to find a way to access the ceiling with some different players.
Not to cut you off, but I think what you're saying, to be clear, like if you're playing Jalen Smith and Duarte and one of the big 3, whatever you want to call the big 3 of Indiana, you can play those 3 with Tatum, right? So if you're not playing Isaiah Jackson, so it's not any 3 Pacers, of course.
True. Yeah. No, let's get. No. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. But I mean, if you're playing Jackson, Duarte, Nembhard, and then you go Jason Tatum, like that, you are eating so much ownership. Like, you are going to just be going up or down with 2,000 of your friends. So, like, if you want to find separation in a large field GPP, you've got to find different ways to build.
I mean, I think one different way is to put Giannis in your lineup. Like, that's a different way to do it. I don't think people are gonna play him, and that could absolutely blow up in your face. But if you're swinging for the fences and taking a big swing in a large field tournament, especially one that has a big portion of the prize pool for first. I think that's one way to do it. Like I would literally just lock in Giannis, and then you could hit the optimize and see what comes around it, and you can kind of manipulate around that. But I don't think Giannis is coming up, and he's in 9% of the optimals I ran for what it's worth on DraftKings. So that's now he's got a smash.
What was Tatum? What was Tatum?
38%. Killian Hayes, I probably ran too many. I ran 150. Maybe I'll run a little less. Giving inferior lineups. But Nembhard at 74%, Jackson at 70, Duarte at 66. Killian Hayes for Detroit at 77%. Let's talk about Detroit. As far as the Pistons, we talked about the guys that are out for them. They are super, super thin. Hayes, he's not even a good shooter, but he still finds his way. Getting some quality fantasy points and good matchup again. These teams had an awesome game last time from a DFS perspective. Detroit is thin. We're expecting Hayes to play 34 minutes. Livers to play 34 minutes. He's grabbing 16% ownership. Omen Yuri is getting what, 36%? Yep. It seems a little bit uncomfortable. We're assuming he's going to draw the start for Bagley. I think I would push back a little bit in that. He's 3.8, 25-point projection. I probably wouldn't play a ton of Corey Joseph. And worth saying, I don't care if George Hill starts or not. He might start if Buddy Hield does not go. I would not play George Hill in my first 100 lineups. First 50 lineups.
I agree. Yeah.
If you see that, and I would not be alarmed. I'll play the next guy that I have coming off the bench in front of him as far as the Indiana side. But talk to me about the Pistons. Clearly you got to get this game right? Your favorite Pistons. How many Pistons is too many Pistons?
Yeah, well, we got to start talking about Killian Hayes, and you made a really, really solid point at the beginning of the show. The tank is already baked in, right? So Killian Hayes, he's playing hard. He's and he's surrounded by really low usage guys. He is the true alpha on this team. I see no reason to fade him. I know he's going to be. He might be the highest owned player on the slate other than Isaiah Jackson. I personally think he's good chalk. I'm certainly not going to tell anybody not to play him. I'm not going to say I personally don't think this is a place to pivot. I really like him today. He can be in your cash game team, obviously, but I also think you can get overweight him in GPPs. It's kind of the other players on Detroit I'm struggling with. It's like Magruder. I'm so kind of blah about. Livers. Yeah, say Kyrie's out.
Okay, so there you go. This is why I think you got to play at least one of these guys on Dallas. I really think but possibly two. And I'm curious what our projections are going to do and how that affects. We might lose a Piston, we might lose a Pacer as far as optimal stuff, but that really shuffles the stuff up. And what if we get the Gobert news? It's going to be wild, and it's going to be so front loaded. This is all stuff that's happening 7:30, right? But
yeah. I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that there's going to end up being a 300 person shop. You know what I mean? In the $15, let's say. You know what I mean? You just got to really pay attention to what the optimizers are saying to you, and you have to understand that other people are looking at those optimizers, and you've really got to take. I personally think, and I only I play single entries with fewer people, but even I want to find ways to separate. I want to find ceilings that matter. I don't want to just play the 6 chalkiest guys, low end, and then the 2 chalkiest studs. You got to really pay attention on a slate like this, because it's really easy to fall into that, shell of, let's just play this team. Well, you're gonna be duped. I could hear Blender yelling that team's gonna be duped, 3,000 times.
But my counter to that, and I hear what you're saying, my counter to that is, again, just commit to 1 5 or 10% stud, right? It could be Giannis, Jaylen Brown, somebody like that, who I don't think is going to be heavily owned, who's really, really good. And then just build around that. And that's a way to be different, certainly in the single entry stuff.
Yes. I like Anthony Edwards, and I also like Jimmy Butler. I like Jimmy Butler and I like Anthony Edwards because they take up a forward spot that's going to be taken up by Tatum, so it's a natural way to get different at super low ownership. Like, are they in as good a spot as Tatum? Are they going to be optimal as many times as Tatum? No, but they're also going to be a fraction of the ownership. So, that's kind of where I'm leaning, is kind of like an Anthony Edwards, Jimmy Butler type pivot. That's kind of what I was initially thinking.
Christian Wood is out as well. Oh, he's questionable. Christian Wood questionable. I don't know how much that moves the needle. Like, I'm not playing Maxi Kleber. I'm not playing Powell.
You don't need those guys today.
Yeah, I don't know how. We're only talking about like 15 minutes to go around anyway. Where do those 15 minutes go? Maybe those guys get a couple more. And, geez, who else is JaVale McGee might play? So who cares, right? Like, that doesn't matter.
That would be my initial take too. Is that I don't care about that.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call in my ear. My apologies. All right, gonna power. I'm still adjusting the earbud life here. There's some pros and some cons, and I guess hearing the phone ring in my ear is one of the cons. But who calls these days? Like, seriously, can you just text?
It's really bad etiquette.
It really is. Or give me a text and say like,
wait. Do you still have a house phone?
No. Those are, I mean, not intentionally, but so it's not worth getting into. We don't, much like the Donovan Mitchell conversation, we don't have time for it. But the person that was working, they told me like, it's cheaper if you say yes to a house phone. I'm like, how does this make any sense?
Right.
But
didn't your house phone back in the day used to go off during shows?
That's definitely, it's a forward-thinking show. It's his daily fantasy sports. We care about today's phone calls and only today's phone calls. But it's definitely something that's happened in the past for sure. Yeah. We talk about Dallas. We're all over the place. We're just kind of talking about the Slate as an overarching thought. But like, yeah, if you just want to play like Anthony Edwards versus you lock in Edwards and lock in like one of Murray or Trae Young. And then just, again, hit the optimizer button and pick your favorite of the first 10 lineups. Like, you can do it that way. And that's a way of being different in like single entry stuff because, and the other thing is, the optimal, the next one's probably like a difference between like 0.5 points. If you're the guy that like just plays the optimal and you're doing it in tournaments, pick like the 7th best one. Don't pick the first one. Or just like, who do you like? You like this player for whatever reason, bump them up artificially a half a point or a point. And just do it that way. All right. We're done with Indiana, Detroit. Final thoughts as far as this game. Did you give me your power rankings as far as the Pistons?
I mean, it's Hayes, Omaruri, and I guess Livers, then Wiseman, then Magruder. Oh, but don't forget about RJ Hampton also. Like, if you're playing large field, I think he makes for like an interesting large field play. Definitely not cash. I'm not going to touch him in single entry, but if you're making 150, I think he's actually a pretty interesting play today. So
what does he have to put up to be useful? He's projected for 23 minutes and 19 fantasy points. He's got to put up like 30 to be useful, right?
But I think he can.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think he can do that. So, I don't mind RJ Hampton in tournaments though.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Minnesota, Atlanta. I was talking about the Milwaukee-Sacramento game having a 244.5 total, and somehow I just missed. This one's got 244.5 total as well. Awesome total. Minnesota at Atlanta, 244.5 is the total there. Atlanta is a 6-point favorite as far as who's in and who's out in this one. Bogdanovich is currently questionable for Atlanta for what it's worth. Minnesota, we've kind of hinted at it a couple times. Gobert looks actually really good if he plays. He's been playing better of late. Again, everything is relative this slate. Your lineup should be full of guys that are good. Everybody should be good on this slate. They all should look good. Gobert is questionable. You certainly can play him if you want to. If he doesn't go, it should fully be Naz Reid season. Austin Rivers questionable. Who cares? We kind of hinted at Anthony Edwards, Trae Young, and DeJounte Murray as far as the Atlanta side. I don't think we're getting a ton of ownership in this game. Just kind of giving her a refresh and we're going to get a new batch in a second, right? Once the Dallas stuff comes into effect. Trae Young is getting 23% on DK, 14% for Edwards, 14 for Anderson, Hunter at 12%. That's a hard click for me. DeAndre Hunter with like all the other Detroit, Dallas, Indiana, all those guys. There's a whole bunch of guys that are basically the same price, look better to me. But your thoughts as far as Minnesota, Atlanta. Good environment, if nothing else.
Great environment. Minnesota has been a little bit better defensively since they, got Mike Conley. It's just, I don't know. Like this game is tough. I really like Anthony Edwards. I really like getting to Rudy Gobert quite a bit. The problem is you already have one center spot taken up by Isaiah Jackson. So, I mean, if Gobert plays, I think, like, we have him for 13% right now. I think that's a little high. I bet he comes in a little lower than that. But maybe I'm wrong. Obviously the game environment's great. I'm not really interested in Conley, McDaniels. I'm not really interested in any of the bench pieces. I think the trickier part of this game is Atlanta. That ownership on Trae Young seems a little high to me. I'd almost rather pivot to Murray. But he's kind of at that awkward price. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is if Bogdanovich is out, I don't mind going to John Collins at 4,500.
He's been getting a run of late. Yeah.
Right, and if Bogdanovich is out, his minutes should become a little bit more solidified. And I really like John Collins today if Bogdanovich is out.
Against Boston, it was interesting because they did not have Capella or Okongwu close. Like typically those guys chop to 48 minutes and that's that. And understand they have a new coach in town. He's been around for like 5 or 6 games or so. I believe it was Collins who closed against the 5. I don't know if that was matchup based, but yeah, they had Trae Young, Murray, Hunter, Bay, and the 5 was Collins in that game. I don't know if that's a matchup thing.
Can they possibly close? Can they possibly close that small against Gobert though?
I think they more likely could against Naz Reid. So like maybe if Gobert's out, Collins gets bumped a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like if Gobert's out, that would like if Gobert's out and Bogdanovich is out, I really like John Collins today. Like I think he's a guy I might even consider playing in single entry.
But like if Gobert's out there, I'm assuming that we're going to have Capella close. Like I just assume that's going to be the case, but I don't know for certain.
True.
And
I think Capella's interesting too. Like he's just he has a super high range of outcomes, which is great for GPPs, and he's coming in with really, really low ownership.
Random question from chat from Big Hurt. Fanduel single entry. You want Curry or you want Booker? They're facing off against each other. We'll talk about that game soon enough. Fun game, if nothing else. I believe that's the second half of the primetime doubleheader.
They're both great, and they're both going to be low owned. I would side with Curry. That would be my lean. I think they're both strong plays, though, and I really like them both for GPPs. So my lean is Curry.
I'm going to refresh and get some optimal stuff in a second. I believe they're working on it right now as far as the lineup HQ tool. Anything else to say here as far as Minnesota and Atlanta?
Nope.
Okay. Next game up, there's only one 7 o'clock game, and that's Indiana Detroit. So we have Memphis and Dallas. 224 is the total. We just got news that Kyrie's not going to play. Obviously, Luka's not going to play. We have Wood, who's currently questionable, and we both think that doesn't really matter, which is that's just where they're at, the state of the Mavericks these days. Otherwise, they're fully healthy, but, we assume that's going to be, Tim Hardaway, Green, and Hardy. I think Hardy looks really, really strong. I'm curious what our projection is. I think it's around 30 DK points. As far as the Memphis side, nothing new. Clark and Adams, of course, are not playing. Laravia is unavailable and Ja unavailable. But the prices have basically caught up, right, with their new situation here in Memphis. Tillman's kind of where he should be. Jackson's kind of where he should be. Bane has been priced up, and Tyus Jones is sort of caught up. Of course, the Mavericks are the more interesting piece of this game from a fantasy perspective, but feel free to attack it. Start whichever side you prefer.
I'm looking at Memphis and I'm trying to think Desmond Bane is the guy that would stick out the most for me. He's not coming in with a lot of ownership. He's like a good pivot off of somebody like, Anthony Edwards, who's kind of like around that same price point. It doesn't necessarily thrill me though. Like this game seems kind of weird to me. And I know it's a 1.5 point spread, but I feel like I don't think Dallas can hang with this team even without Morant. I feel like I don't know. It just feels like Memphis is gonna control this game pretty easily. And like you said, the prices are appropriate now. They've adjusted to life without Morant. So I'm kind of concerned about ceiling with this game, and especially with Memphis. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know if I'm completely off track here, but it just doesn't feel great. They just seem too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you were talking about single entry stuff. I'm probably not playing anybody on Memphis. If you're playing, 100 lineups, I would certainly get some shares. I think there's an upside to Tyus Jones. I was trying to see I was looking at their pace last game, Dallas. We don't have a huge sample size, so no Luka, no Kyrie, but the pace last game for Dallas was basically their pace they've had the entire season, which is not appealing.
It's bad. Yeah.
96.5. And their season-long pace, of course, they've been one of the slowest teams in the league, if not the slowest, second slowest, 96.86. That's just one game, but that was just kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Let's go Memphis last 5 or so. Again, can we get anything from that? Life without Ja, life without Clark. Ja is the big one, of course. Memphis, 10th in pace last 5. Defensively, Memphis is, let's see, I think they're middle of the pack. They're actually 10th in defense. Their offense is, where are they at? Nothing. Yeah, middle of the pack. Nothing really kind of standing out in the last 5 games or so. By the way, we did get a refresh as far as ownership, as far as projections. I ran 100 optimal lineups on Fanduel. I want to show Fanduel some love as well. I capped it at 80%. Nobody getting more than 80%. And we have 3 guys on Fanduel hitting that cap right now. 2 Pacers, 1 Maverick. That's Nembhard, Isaiah Jackson, and Jaden Hardy is hitting it on Fanduel. 4.5K, 30-point projection. Again, handled the ball a ton last game. A little bit unlucky as far as assists. I believe he ended up with 3. He had 13 potential. Not the best shooters necessarily around him, but theoretically he would grab more than 3 assists on 13 potential assists. Same deal on DK. I capped this one at, looks like 77%, and 3 guys hit it. 2 guys hit it. Jaden Hardy and Killian Hayes. So very first optimal right now only has 2 Pacers for what it's worth, because we introduced some Mavericks. We have 3 Pistons. 2 Pistons, 2 Pacers, 2 Mavericks, and 2 studs. That's it right there, right? 2 Pistons, 2 Pacers, 2 Mavericks, 2 studs. That's Jason Tatum, Trae Young. You probably can figure out who those players are.
I feel like you could hand build right into the optimal tonight.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm trying to tell people. Like, if you can just hand build right into the optimal on a 7-game slate, you've got to be finding some separators. You got to take some chances. If you really want to finish at the top of GPPs.
3 Pacers for what it's worth in the second optimal. 2 in the next one with 1 Piston, and 3 Mavericks. And that's a good question, because I saw in the chat they're talking about, can you play all 3? Can you play Hardy, Hardaway, and Green? Would you play all 3 in one lineup?
Man, I wouldn't, but I guess you could. It's fine. It doesn't. That's not my. It's not my favorite, especially if they're showing up in optimals.
Yeah, I mean, I might just cap everything at 2 if I'm just kind of running some stuff, and maybe I'll tinker otherwise, or just. But I think I might do that. But again, that's not necessarily being different. We saw the first optimal lineup had 2-2-2 and 2 studs. Yeah, Will in chat saying he's got 3 studs on Fanduel. They're asking about how many studs is too many studs. The first optimal lineup on Fanduel, for what it's worth, it has 2.5 studs, right? Tatum, Sabonis, and Gobert. Is Gobert a stud? Kind of, sort of, somewhat on the fringe. First one's got 2.5, so it's between 2 and 3. I'd be really curious if like Embiid or Jokic were on this slate. They're not, but that would be interesting if you're going to grab those guys. But there's not like this incredible center. I suppose Giannis and Sabonis are guys who can play at center. But let's just talk about what we have in front of us. Do you have a thought on that as far as the number of studs you'd have on FanDuel, or are you still kind of figuring that out, 2 or 3?
I'm gonna. Again, it depends on how you define stud, but I'm gonna try to do 3. But I also really gonna try to pay attention to what the optimizers are saying, and if they're saying 3, 2, 3, then I might go to 2. Like I really don't want to like hand build into the optimal. So we've said it before. Like I know I'm playing Isaiah Jackson. I know I'm playing Nembhard, and Killian Hayes probably, and then after that, I'm not really completely convinced who else I'm going to be playing.
Hardy's grabbing 44% ownership on DK. Ownership was just updated. Hardaway at 24%. Josh Green at 16%. I kind of like Josh Green at 16%. I think it's a pretty good play.
See, maybe like fading Hardaway and playing Josh Green. Like that's a way to get different. I'm not saying you have to fade Hardaway. I'm just saying that's one of the chances that you can take tonight to make yourself a different team.
Memphis, for what it's worth, nobody getting double digits with Triple J right there at 9, Bane at 9, Brooks at 9, Tillman at 6, and Tyus Jones at like 3 or 4% on DraftKings at 7.3K. Like Tyus Jones can put up 50, and it wouldn't shock any of us.
Yes,
I think that's if you're like maxing, I would definitely get over 4% on Tyus Jones on DraftKings. That seems a little bit too low.
I think even if you're making like 20 teams, I would put like maybe Tyus in like 2, double the field in 2.
I don't know about. I'm not going to pretend I know about Jaden Hardy's prowess to defend, but I feel like he's not a good defender. Or at least like maybe at best he's like middle of the road.
Right.
If that's who they're throwing on Tyus Jones, and I guess that's what they're probably going to have because Hardaway will probably be on Bane, I'm guessing, or maybe Green will.
Hardy will be on Tyus.
Anything else here to say as far as this game?
Nope.
Jared wants to know: are you different enough you would play Jalen Smith over Isaiah Jackson, or is that just terrible? I think you can do that.
You really think you can do that if you're making one team?
Well, look, as far as ownership, how many times does Jalen Smith outscore Isaiah Jackson? It's not, and they had a little crossover. They played together a little bit last game too. And again, you could tell yourself Isaiah Jackson's not like somebody that is a part of their future and they're developing him and they want to give him 30 plus minutes. He's still a guy that's going to play 27, 28, maybe 29 minutes. I don't think it's like insane.
The counter for me to that is I think there are other better ways to get super contrarian on the slate. That's
the other counter is the price. Jalen Smith is more expensive than Jackson, which is kind of weird. I look again. If I'm making one team, I'm probably not doing that. If I'm making 100, I definitely do it on a couple. It's you got to tell yourself a story, but I think Jalen Smith outscores Jackson at least like 5 or 10% of the time. Is that an outrageous number?
No, nope. I agree with that.
And Derek's saying, what about Wiseman on the other side of that game? Like, Wiseman's another guy. Wiseman could put up like 18 and 12 and like 4 or 5 stocks. Like he can do that too. Bagley.
Are you worried about Duran though?
How much are they playing Duran? Like he's theoretically. Well, I guess they traded for Wiseman, but theoretically, Duran is the guy of their future. But
he's getting 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't you think that number might get a little higher though, because he was injured for quite a while?
It could. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. I don't know. It's 20 minutes it could be 27 and it wouldn't shock me. You're right.
I wonder, and I also question kind of Wiseman's stealing. Like he doesn't have.
He's a good fantasy player.
It's 6K though.
Again, I think that you can make the argument that like there's some salary certainly matters, but it matters a little bit less on this slate, I guess is what I'll say. The wild thing, by the way, in this Indiana Detroit game, not to go backwards, I was looking at the usage rates. There's 5 players in the court. Theoretically, if it was like baseball, everybody has 20% usage. It's not the case. Guys like Booker guys have like 35, 40% usage, and other guys like 15. Nobody in this game, if Hield doesn't play, Hield's 21%. Nobody's got higher than a 20% usage. Like somebody's got to step up, right? That's just how that's going to go.
That's why I love Killian Hayes so much, because the people around him are like they're not shooters, they're not high usage guys. So I think he's just going to be his show tonight.
We spent a lot of time in those games. We're going to kind of fly through these. Crunch time's in about 20 minutes or so. Andy Means coming on. You got Keith as well. Iceman Roth will take over. Take you guys straight up the lock. Utah is playing against Miami Heat. 226 is the total. Utah is a 9-point dog here. They are going to be without Clarkson. Clarkson has that finger, so he's not going to be playing basketball tonight. Sexton not playing as well. The prices have pretty much adjusted for Utah. THT all the way up to 7K. Dunn has worked his way up as well too. Miami, Lowry expected to go. Martin expected to go. Duncan Robinson's questionable. Doesn't really matter. Cody Zeller has a nose, so he can't play. Doesn't really matter. I don't have a lot to say about this game. They're playing basketball. You can get some shots. We talked about Hero a little bit. Pretty good price, 6.9K. You mentioned Butler. That's a way to be different. Bam Adebayo, like this season, Utah's been really vulnerable inside, but they've been better of late. I think that kind of coincides with the rise of Kessler getting more run. Kessler looking really, really good for Utah as far as a prospect going forward. I don't love anything. There's no priorities. If you want to sprinkle, you can sprinkle Hero, Butler, Bam. Utah side, I guess you could always play Markkanen theoretically. I don't think I am, but I don't know much here. You tell me.
Jimmy Butler is my favorite of the spend up options for a large field GPP. So he's my favorite spend up on the slate. For a contrarian play. Like you said, they've been better on the inside interior with Kessler, but I still think if Butler is kind of wants to be aggressive in this game, he can dominate Lauri Markkanen, he can dominate Kelly Olynyk. That's not a guarantee, obviously. The other note about this game is that we originally had Lowry in the starting lineup. He's going to be playing off the bench today, so now we have Gabe Vincent as our projected starter. That's just a little note, not a huge deal for DFS, but I'm really high on Jimmy Butler today, just because I don't want to eat kind of like the Jason Tatum chalk necessarily, and he's coming in lower than Tatum. He's coming in lower than Anthony Edwards, so I think that's where I'm going to take my shot on like a higher end player.
I'll add a note on your notes. I don't think it matters either, but Lowry didn't start last game, and he still played 36 minutes, which was kind of shocking. But he played 36 minutes last game, including in overtime, for what it's worth. I don't think I'm playing Lowry. I'm definitely not playing Lowry, I should say. But just throwing that out there.
Yep.
I got nothing else. You want to move on?
Yep.
All right. We have 3 more games of 15 minutes, so plenty of time here. Boston, Houston, 231 is the total. Boston on the road is a 13-point favorite because the Houston Rockets, they are horrendous at basketball. Celtics are good. They have Jason Tatum. They are pretty healthy. There's no Peyton Pritchard. There's no Time Lord, no Robert Williams. As far as Houston, they are fully healthy and good to go, assuming Şengün. He's currently probable with that groin. We sort of talked about Tatum several times. It's an incredible matchup. I think he's the highest raw point player on the slate. Maybe it's Giannis. We don't know if he's going to play or not. But we have the salary. It's super, super easy. And you've sort of talked about not playing him. I assume it's not because you don't like him. It's just because you want to be a little bit different as far as lineups, because optimals are going to point you right to Tatum because it's not player, not matchup. It's hard to dislike it. But, talk about Tatum and the rest of the Celtics.
Like you said, you made a really great point when I was talking about this. If you play Tatum, you got to be throwing some different guys from Indiana. That's the bottom line. Like you can't just play the 3 chalkiest guys from Indiana and Killian Hayes and play Tatum. Like you can't do that, GPPs. If you want to play Tatum, then you got to get different with that Indiana Detroit game. That's the bottom line. So if I'm obviously not telling anybody not to play Jason Tatum. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you have to be really, really, you got to pay attention to how you're building the rest of your team if you're going to play Jason Tatum. He's obviously in an amazing spot. I think there is very legitimate blowout risk. Obviously, it's a 13-point spread. I don't think necessarily Tatum hits a ceiling in a blowout either, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit of the bearish case on Tatum, but in cash games, I would totally recommend Jason Tatum as a stud.
The update on Rudy Gobert is no update. He's still game time. They did rule out Austin Rivers. I don't think that really matters. Whatever. I guess
that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. If you're not playing Tatum, do you consider Jaylen Brown, currently 14% owned?
I think he's a real.
Yeah.
I think Brown's a really interesting pivot. Same thing kind of with the Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards play. Like that whole range, I think it's going to get pretty spread out with ownership. So if you're making multiple teams tonight, you can build your core of like the Indiana, Detroit guys, and then spread it out amongst some of these 8-9K guys that aren't going to have a ton of ownership.
You like anybody in Houston? I mean, single entry, probably no. If you're playing maybe 3-entry max or large field, you can certainly get there. They're fully healthy, which is, not ideal when it comes to considering fantasy points. We've seen Jabari Smith play better of late, but, hard to justify. Şengün, his minutes have been cut all over the place. Is it possible he plays 35 tonight? I guess, maybe. What do you have as far as the Rockets?
I guess if I had to pick one, it would be Jabari Smith. But, I'm not thrilled about it. This is a really, really, really bad matchup. They're fully healthy. Their minutes can be a little bit unpredictable. I strongly doubt that any of them will be in optimal lineups tonight.
No. Well, I mean, as far as the optimizer, it's possible somebody gets there. If this game fully blows out, maybe
I just meant like after the slate's over, I doubt they'll be in winning teams. I'm sure they're not in like optimizers right now.
We have a Joe Rogan in the chat. I'm not sure if it's the Joe Rogan, but it's a Joe Rogan. And I thought I wanted to address this before. It says I'm fading all these Pistons and Pacers plays tonight. And like there are certain nights where this kind of stuff can blow up in your face. Like when we have OKC and they still have like 12 guys and everybody's going to play 25 minutes and you don't necessarily have to have any of them. This is a different situation, man. Like I cannot envision a scenario where no Pacer and no Piston ends up in the final winning lineups. I just can't paint that scenario for me and tell me how that happens. Is it possible?
I don't see that happening.
Like
there could be foul trouble for a couple of the guys, a couple injuries, and there's still going to be a couple guys that are going to be optimal. I mean, it's like it's just not. I can't paint that picture for you.
If you want to go under the field on it, and like again, there are good pivots in that Dallas game. If you want to go heavier on Dallas, sure. If that's the route you want to take, but I think that's just being too cute, and this isn't MOB. Like there's a reason why it's chalky, and the chalk, it's good chalk collectively. Is there going to be maybe one or two players that don't quite get there? Sure, maybe. And when I say get there, like 5x is bad, right? If you want to,
you don't want 5x tonight.
5x is not good. It might be good for like your 10K player that maybe could be useful.
Buddy's playing. Buddy's in.
I don't think I'm playing Buddy for the record. I might have him on one lineup. I just don't think they let him loose and let him go.
Like if you're playing,
personal take. If
you're playing 10, do you have him?
Maybe one. I might have him in one. Yeah. I think they keep his minutes down. Again, this is my personal thought. You can't put that in an optimizer and whatever. I think we're giving him 30 minutes. They've been kind of babying his minutes as is. Again, if you look at his minutes, I don't think they really want to win this game. Again, they might win it accidentally, or it's really hard unless you start shooting on your own basket. And then that would be shameful. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the last two games. Last two games go down at 10 o'clock on the East Coast. I believe we have a break, right? 8 o'clock, Boston, Houston. Yeah, then we have a 2-hour break as far as the late night doubleheader. 5 up front, 2 on the back end. 2 really, really good games. Phoenix, Golden State, 235.5 is the total. Phoenix is a 5-point dog here. This is the back half of, I believe, ESPN has a doubleheader tonight. No Durant, unfortunately. No revenge for him. No Landry Shamet. As far as Golden State, both these teams had a player that slipped pregame, right? Durant slipped pregame, and then Kuminga slipped pregame. That's why he missed a couple days ago. He's questionable tonight for what it's worth. Wiggins, of course, still out for the foreseeable future. They didn't really have an update for him, so Andrew Wiggins unavailable for Golden State. Really good game, really fun game, but I don't think we're getting – I'm checking now, I'm refreshing now. We're not getting much ownership here, right? I don't think so.
Isn't Booker like 20%?
Okay, so maybe Booker.
Yeah.
18% for Booker, 10% for Paul, Curry at 7, Ayton at 6. Yeah, Clay and Draymond around 4 or 5. But yeah, I guess Booker in the absence of KD, and he was, even with KD, he was firing away. His usage was phenomenal. Coming off kind of a middling game, I guess, by his standards. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Phoenix, Golden State?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I like Devin Booker. I'm not great. I mean, that price is getting pretty up there. I mean, Golden State's so much better defensively at home, too, you know? Like, I'm not too crazy about this. I'm certainly not crazy about it if he's going to be like 18, 20% owned. So I would rather pivot elsewhere. I'd rather pivot to Curry at 4%, right, for $300 more for me. But I think Booker's a little bit too high owned for me today. The rest of the squad, the rest of this game, it's a pass for me. I don't really have any real interest in it.
Yeah, no priorities. I'm fine with Ayton. I'm fine with Chris Paul. I'm not going to besmirch. By the way, a question in chat from Bryant. What do we think of James Johnson? I don't want to fight James Johnson, so I'll say that. But do not want to roster him tonight. What's that?
Well, I actually wanted to say something about him real quick. Like, if you're making 150, I don't mind it if you like sprinkled him like in like one or two. Yeah, I mean, you know, he got 21 minutes last game. He's pretty much the min price. Like, I don't hate it. I
don't think it's more than that. Is my take. He might play 21 again. But, like, my angle would be, like, when the Pacers are theoretically good, and they could be good soon, theoretically, James Johnson's not on that team. They don't care about developing James Johnson. True. Not that there's a lot of these guys they don't really care. Well, some of these pieces, but look, I'm not going to say you can't play him, but if I was ranking the Pacers, I think he's like my 6th or 7th Pacer.
Yeah, maybe even lower than that. But
I think Brissett before I play Johnson. How about that? I'll take Brissett over Jones.
I think my point is that if you're making quite a few teams tonight, you know, spreading out amongst these bench Pacer players could be your way of separating yourself. That's my only point, you know. So that's my only argument.
Anything else that we should kind of showcase as far as Phoenix and Golden State? The people know you can play Curry. The people know you can play Paul. They know you can play Booker.
It's the best. It's the best real life game of the slate, but I don't really have much interest in terms of DFS.
Oh, I don't know. Milwaukee, Sacramento might say, hold my beer. If Giannis goes, that could be a lot of fun, too. And Sacramento, talk about Sacramento. Their crowds are having a blast these days with lighting the beam up there. They're currently in the 2 spot in the Western Conference. They're going to make the playoffs for the first time in like 16 years or so. I think this is a fun game, too. Both these games, a lot of fun. We don't know about Giannis, and it's a good game theory question because we're currently projecting him for 16% ownership. Like, the longer he is not ruled in or ruled out, I think that number goes down. There's really no way our projection can handle that. Like, if we don't know by 8 o'clock, like 8:01, I think his ownership's down. And again, we talked about it already. There are some things you can consider. If he's out, you can pivot to Sabonis. You got 2K left. And then maybe I'm trying to think, like, you can get up to like a Holiday or get up to a Middleton. Is there like a 6K guy? I don't know. I haven't worked it out. Yeah. Do you have anything on the fly? Have you considered? I've not figured it out just yet what I'm doing with Giannis. But ideally, I want to have some Giannis, especially, again, I think he's going to get a little bit less ownership the deeper we get into the slate and we don't have that news. As far as other players in this game, Joe Ingles is not playing basketball for Milwaukee. Wes Matthews is available for what it's worth, and Sacramento is fully healthy. Giannis is grabbing the most ownership right there with Sabonis, both at 16-17% on DK. Fox at 12%. Barnes just a little bit too cheap. I don't know how useful he is, but he is 5K. I think that's a pretty fair price, 8%. Otherwise, nobody grabbing anything. Of course, this stuff will change. If Giannis is out, Middleton would rise. Holiday would rise. Not smash rise, though, because I'm curious, your take. Like, if Giannis is ruled out, do we have to say, oh, my God, I must get Middleton or Holiday or Portis or even Lopez? I don't think you have to.
I don't think so. I don't think they become must plays. I really like Sabonis today. I'd rather Giannis be out just to get some of that rim protection out of there. But
same.
If we knew Giannis was out, I would be loading up. I'd definitely be getting higher on the field on Sabonis. I think he's going to absolutely destroy Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, and if Giannis isn't there, then he doesn't have to worry about him. So Sabonis is my favorite play from this game. Obviously Giannis, could be easily the highest raw point scorer on the slate. We have enough cheapies that we can fit him pretty easily. It's just, he's still 12,000. So you still need a good score from him, and we don't know if he's going to be playing. So for me, you got to build like a 2v2 and make sure that you're prepared to late swap. But it's I think I'm going to go a little bit lower with my studs tonight. I think that's kind of where I'm leading.
Rad Dad Fanny Pack is Vlade Divac still playing. He's not still playing. He was a horrific GM for the Kings for a while.
He was.
I think he's no longer the GM for the Kings. He was terrible as far as he really set that franchise back. Did I mention they did not play in the playoffs for like 16 years or so, give or take?
Right.
Mr. Richard wants to know if Giannis plays, can you play him and Sabonis, DK single entry with 3 max? I think you can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And again, set yourself up where you have some flexibility if Giannis happens to be out, where maybe you can get to Curry in the utility spot or something like that. Just give yourself some flexibility.
Curry or Booker or something. You got you've got to set up being flexible, like you said.
Kobe wants to know who got the better end of the Sabonis Hield Halliburton trade. I mean, I've said this. I think the Halliburton side is much better. I know Sabonis is thriving in Sacramento, but this is his ceiling. This is as good as he's going to be. Halliburton's like 4 years younger. I believe he's cheaper too. And long term, I think it's the Halliburton side. Do you have a take on that?
I agree with you, definitely. It's Halliburton.
Anything else as far as questions? We did knock it all out. Do hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications. If you have any more questions, feel free to fire them off. But I believe the Crunch Time crew will be knocking on the door momentarily. You got Andy Means. You got Kevin Roth holding it down, answering your questions in the Discord. If y'all don't know, Roth is going to prioritize the Discord questions. RotoGrinders.com/Discord. There is a premium chat channel. It's called the Crunch Time channel. That's where he'll hit up first. And of course, if we have time, allots, he's happy to go to the YouTube channel. Don't go anywhere. They're coming in just a second, I believe. Give me your favorite play. Do we have somebody we're going to just absolutely play, and that's that in your single entry?
Jimmy Butler.
What? So that's the thing. If you're playing Jimmy Butler in your single entry contest, you don't have to be all that goofy around that. Is sort of my take on that.
I know
Butler's got to do it though. If Butler is bad, you're done. Forget it.
Right. But I mean, I like the cheap shot, so I have to get different somewhere else. That's my point. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're probably playing those 3 Pacers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's okay if you play Butler.
Right. I've said that the whole show. I'm definitely going to have 3 Pacers and a Detroit player, probably named Killing Hayes, and then I got to get different somewhere else.
And what if Rudy Gobert gets ruled out?
Right.
All of a sudden, the slate really, it's a wild one. It's a fun one, and it's totally front-loaded. We got the Crunch Time crew in. Who's got the Magic 8 Ball? Who has consulted the precogs? Who can tell me? Can Andy tell me? Can Keith tell me? I have the Magic 8 Ball. It's worthless. Doesn't help me out at all. Is Giannis going to play tonight? Do we know, Keith, Andy? Is Giannis playing basketball this evening?
I got nothing.
Oh, Keith?
Yeah, no real lean for me either.
Roth, I know you got sources. People are always sliding into your DMs. What do you have, Roth?
Was that a Minority Report reference?
Yes. Nicely done.
I have no idea if he's playing or not, but I liked the reference.
The Precogs. There you go. Underrated movie. We don't talk about it enough. Didn't win an Oscar last night, to my understanding.
It's good.
But about 15 years later, I suppose it wasn't up for anything. But,
what did you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I did not like it as much as everybody else did.
I am not surprised.
What, did you like it?
I did like it, yes. But to be fair, I liked it as a, oh, what a random fun movie, not as a, now the expectations are up here because it won every freaking award kind of movie. So now I don't know if I'd recommend it as much. I appreciate the big swing. It is a huge big swing. It was really ambitious and it was well executed. I just didn't care about the story. So I wouldn't not recommend it. I like Triangle of Sadness. That's probably my favorite movie that was up for the ones that I've seen. I've not seen all of them, but that's another movie I would not recommend to just anybody. It's 2.5 hour black comedy. The other three here are just riveted by this movie conversation. Means Tim and Ice are just on the edge of their seat. I'm sure the chat
Who talks about new movies besides Top Gun?
I haven't seen any of these movies. I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
TJ in chat says Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of his favorite movies of all time. Okay. It was kind of Matrixy. I thought it reminded me of The Matrix, a different version, a different angle of that, but I don't want to give too much away. Going cold and see what you think. I wouldn't say you shouldn't watch it, but yeah, we should probably talk basketball. We got the Andy Means. We have Keith. Tim, is there anything else we should say before we step aside and get out of here and make way for crunch time?
No, thanks, guys. Good luck.
All right. That was Tim. I was Dean. This is crunch time. Go for it, Roth.
Appreciate it, Dino. As always, excellent work, and welcome to it. This is the Oscar-worthy show known as Crunch Time. It is sponsored by Fanduel, and it is the show that has some of the sharpest hosts in the biz. We got one Mr. Andy Means. What up, bud?
Nothing. This is like a mirror image of Saturday's slate. Like the Mavs, the Pacers, the Pistons, a lot of these teams are playing each other again. I don't remember what the stud situation was on Saturday, but we have some stuff to talk about when it comes to the expensive guys. Not much to talk about when it comes to the cheap guys, but really, really, really good slate.
I'm really mad. My phone is on 2% battery, and I really want to make a bunch of lineups, but I know halfway through it will die. So it's not even worth doing, and I don't have a charger here. So
Şengün's out.
Şengün
You can't enter lineups on that little thing that you're using to do the show right now.
Can you do it? You can do it on a computer. I guess I can. I don't even know if I've got my login information. I'm gonna try. That's a good idea. I don't.
Classic hand builder comment. Roth has clearly never uploaded a CSV.
Facts, big facts. We got Ice as well. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm pretty good. NFL free agency kicking off today, so I've been following that like crazy as well. But yeah, really fun slate here in the NBA. Lots of chalk, lots of good chalk. So cash game should be Mavs chalk. Lots of Mavs chalk for Roth. Oh yeah. Okay. Mr. Right. Hardy time.
Yeah. Oh, good. He gets the shots up, man. I was looking at his game log the other night, and I was like, I want to play this dude when everyone's out. I think he took like 21 shots the other night or something. So yeah, I'm down with that. Boys, it has been a long week for your boy. So it's a double beer kind of. Yes, it's Monday, but the weekend when you have kids, the weekend is the week. Because that's the hard part, and then the week is the easy part because there's daycare. So it's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a good show. Means let's get to the content because it's clear there is a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, Şengün just got rolled out, which was not expected. He was like probable, I think. So want to see who they start there at center, or like maybe move Jabari to the 5 and Easton to the 4. What do you think, guys? That would not surprise me. Like. They like both of those guys a lot, so I think we could see that. Probably not like all season long. It's been like a Garuba or somebody like that stepping in. Yeah, but we'll see. Like those two starting next to each other would be really interesting. Yeah, we'll see what projections guys do when they move that. Got some of the other news. Buddy Hield's playing. Gobert's questionable. It sounds like he's a little closer to probable, but we'll see because that obviously matters for Naz Reid purposes. Yeah, I got most of the other news already, like big old tank fest with Detroit and the Pacers. So, but like, there's some decisions to be made because like Giannis is questionable in that game. Their game is a part of two games at the 10 o'clock Eastern window. That kind of matters more for Giannis than it does for the other guys, just because he's been out for 3 straight games, and like he's a good spend up if you think like normalish minutes, but you can't. It's really hard to like make some decisions, like especially on DK. Like I'm looking. I know I'm speaking a little getting ahead of myself, but this is relevant. Trust me. Like you look at for spend ups on DK, you have like Tatum, and he starts at 8 Eastern, and that's like at that point you have to make a decision, because if like I'm saying, if you don't have Giannis news, because if you don't know if Giannis is going to play and you say I don't want to play Tatum at power forward, because we'll talk about it when we get to power forward. It's the thinnest spot. Then if Giannis doesn't play, then you are like up the creek. If you're like looking at the build I'm looking at, because there's just no one you can play at power forward. Portis is like 7-1, but like then what leaves you at utility, you're gonna be like 1 or 2K under the max salary. So you're gonna be like leaving a ton of money on the table. So there'll be some interesting decisions. I know I went on a tangent, but that's like the stuff we'll be talking about tonight.
Okay, and it sounds like if you do that, also, when it doesn't work out, everyone's going to be making the same pivots, right? And everyone's going to have your exact build.
Say that again.
Would everyone essentially, you'd be on the same lineups as everyone else as well if you did that?
Like you're saying, if we got news right now that Giannis was in, would everyone be playing the same lineup? Essentially,
that's not what I was saying, but sure, just to keep it moving.
Well, I guess I'll just answer kind of your question like vaguely. Like I think everyone's playing the same cheap guys. I have no idea what people are doing with expensive guys, because it's like the Giannis Q tag. Tatum is a 13-point favorite against the Rockets. Trae Young grades out well, but most of the best plays are guards, the cheap plays. So like I don't know what people are doing on the cheap end, or I'm sorry, the expensive end. So it's tough.
All right. Well, it sounds fun. Before we get to FanDuel, good to note, it's a good time to sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in an illegal sports betting state, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get the no-sweat first bet up to $1K. Terms and conditions apply. And then the FanDuel Single Entry Series, sponsored by RotoGrinders, that is still rolling strong. Reserve your spot in the Monday NBA Dribbler Contest. $1 to enter for your chance at 300 bones. Means let's walk through a little FanDuel build.
Yeah, I'm going to try to not go spread too far of a net here with guys I talk about, because there's some very clear things to be playing here. So, and it starts at point guard. On FanDuel, you have Nembhard. Pacers are without Halliburton, McConnell. That's all you really need to know when it comes to Nembhard. But then you have Turner out, Mathurin out. I'm sure I'm missing one. I thought Hield was going to sit, but he is playing, so we'll see. But yeah, he's an obvious one. And then Killian Hayes is a relatively obvious one. And Killian's only point guard eligible. Nembhard has both, which will help because there's another obvious shooting guard only play. So then when you're getting to anything else here that you might be filling in, probably going to be expensive, like Trae Young, Fox, DeJounte, Chris Paul at 8K. Nothing like really great there. So I'm fine just going double cheap here, but the way things work out at other spots, you may have to spend up. But yeah, let's keep it moving here. And shooting guard is definitely Jaden Hardy for me at 4-5. And then I really like Josh Green. So and those two guys are only shooting guard eligible. So I'm going to tell you a little story, Roth. So I'm looking at projected ownership on FanDuel right now. We have Tim Hardaway. He's 5'8", shooting guard, small forward, 38% projected ownership. Josh Green, 4'7", 25% projected ownership. What if I told you that in this exact situation on Saturday, Josh Green had a higher usage rate. He had a far and away much higher assist rate. He had a far and away much higher rebound rate. He played 2.5, 3 less minutes. That's the only negative, but he's like much cheaper and coming in much lower on. Like, I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but you got a Josh Green dot, don't you?
Yes, he does more. Like THJ, yes, even in this spot, just scores essentially. Like he's really just, and even at that, he might score 25 maybe 30 points, but Josh Green could score 25, 30 points and board and dime. So like I love that call because I watch him play and he does everything.
That is precisely what I was getting at.
Mm-hmm.
And THJ on Saturday had 23 and 6. Like, that's good. He also had 2 blocks, not counting on that again.
Right.
2 assists, and like he was not looking good at halftime. He like got really hot in the third quarter, I think, and salvaged the night. I played him that night. I'm not gonna beat around the bush, but like just and the Hardaway price tag on Fanduel is good. I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just saying factor these things in.
Yeah.
Because
are you still playing? Can you play them both? Will you play them both?
What I would do is play Green and Hardy at shooting guard, and I would play Killian and Nimhard at point guard, and those are your guard slots. Then you can play THJ at small forward. Then it's like a spin up fest at the forward and the center. Like That's what I would personally be doing. Mm-hmm. So like I'll mention a couple other shooting guards just in case. Obviously THJ. Then you have Duarte's like right in the mix too. He's probably going to be more of a play on DraftKings, just the way the pricing and the positional stuff works out. But he's fine too. Like for instance, I would much rather play Josh Green at 25% over Chris Duarte at 32% on FanDuel. So like those are some decisions you have to make. Like maybe Bane is a spin up and you can play him at small forward. Let's just go to small forward because I've made my guard thoughts pretty clear. And my small forward thoughts are going to be pretty clear as well for the most part, where you have THJ, you have Duarte. I like Slow-Mo, a little more expensive than them. And then this is where you're talking about like Tatum at 11K, Giannis at 11.8. If I knew Giannis was playing right now, I'd say play Giannis. But there are 2 hours difference, and who knows when you get that news and you got to make a decision. But you probably got to play one of those dudes, man. Like the way the cheap stuff at guard's working out, you probably got to play one of those dudes. Maybe you play like a Jaylen Brown at 9.1 or an Anthony Edwards at 9K or Desmond Bane at 8.5. But I think you got to spend up at the other small forward slot, which makes me think you play like THJ and then a spend up. And then power forward is Isaiah Jackson, who's like one of the best cheap plays on the slate. And so then probably want to spend up here too, like Sabonis, Giannis. You play Jimmy Butler at power forward. Jaren Jackson's even in play, I think. But definitely Jackson and then someone else. And then center is, we'll see if we get Naz Reid. But like then you got to start talking about like priorities of like cheap stuff. So you're probably spending up here too. And this is actually the worst. You're probably feeling this out last, if I'm being honest. Like if you just sort by RG value and look at center, there's like 2 guys who have any semblance of green. And if you look at all positions, it's like a bunch of bright green everywhere else. So like I would fill this out last and kind of see where you're hanging out. Most likely you're going to be in the Bam Adebayo, Gobert range. Maybe you can also get up to Sabonis here. But yeah, fill out center last. And that's all I have.
Okay. I'm not sure if this was a mistake, but you didn't mention Boban with Şengün out, and I just wanted to see if it just slipped your mind or what happened there.
It definitely is. All of the Rockets slipped my mind, honestly, because I forgot to refresh lineup HQ before I started talking. So I'll let Ice talk and I'll reassess Houston. But yeah, my mistake. Sorry, Boban. I know you watch, but
it's fair. Yeah. Ice, can I start with this question? Is everyone going to have one of those spend up forwards? Like, is everyone going to have a Tatum or a maybe Giannis if he's in? Because like you got to spend somewhere. Where are people spending?
Yeah, I think Tatum is going to be the chalk spend up. Maybe not now with Şengün being rolled out. Like I was already concerned about blowout risk. Now I think there's a ton of blowout risk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Tatum is the chalkiest spend. Trae Young is a guy that's going to be played quite a bit. But yeah, I think that's where you get different today. There's outside of Tatum, just because of the Giannis situation, I think the spend ups are where you can differentiate today. I'm definitely going to be underweight on what we have Tatum projected now. I think that there are some really solid forward pivots. Jaylen Brown on the same team is certainly a great pivot. Tim was talking about Jimmy Butler, who's in a fantastic spot against Utah. So I like going to either of those guys rather than paying up for Tatum. And then I think just not being afraid to pay Giannis is my favorite way to attack this slate. You definitely need to be careful with how you're building that. So like the two best games on this slate are the last two games of the night, and nobody's playing them. You have 4 contenders, should be 2 really competitive games. There's a good chance that these studs in these games are going off. So I'm building with Giannis. I'm going to make sure I'm overweight on Sabonis and Fox on the other side of that game. And then Phoenix and Golden State, nobody's playing that game either. You've got Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, who I like quite a bit. Steph Curry can go off for 60 any given night. So like building with those 2 games at the end of the slate, but making sure you have multiple pieces in case the news doesn't break and Giannis ends up sitting. You need to have a couple of roster spots to be able to move some things around. Gotcha. So building overweight on the studs in those last 2 games is my favorite way to attack the slate, because the chalk is so good. Like in Indiana, there's nobody, like they're all way underpriced and they're all going to play a ton of minutes. There's just not enough bodies. Nemhard's going to handle the ball a majority of the time, and he's really cheap. Jackson can put up a ton of points per minute, and he's going to play mid-20s minutes unless he gets into foul trouble. And then, somebody like Jalen Smith is going to have to step up and play a ton of minutes. So like for everybody on Indiana to fail, like I just don't see a path to that happening. So I want to be overweight on those guys. Detroit, like there's no usage guys on this team whatsoever. Like Killian Hayes is going to put up a ton of shots in this game. Wiseman and Duren, like one of those guys is probably smashing. I think if I'm pivoting within a team, it'd be like not playing Killian Hayes in a lineup and playing somebody like Wiseman, who's getting far less ownership because his price has come up, but Wiseman can still absolutely smash in the spot. And then Dallas, like Hardy is going to shoot the ball 20 times, most likely. Same with Hardaway. Like there's just guys stepping into massive roles. So fading the chalk is not a great idea. The cheap chalk anyway. But that's why you build with a little bit different guys at the top end. So underweight on Tatum, underweight on Trae Young. Like pivoting from Trae Young to DeJounte Murray is just an outstanding example of how you make the same, like Trae Young, a bunch of Indiana and Detroit, and a couple Dallas guys. You pivot that. Instead of paying up for Trae Young and Jason Tatum, pay for DeJounte Murray and Jaylen Brown, and you're massively different and could gain huge leverage on the field.
Okay, very good. I like it. A quick correction here that I need to address. The script that I got was a little bit off for my read, so let me correct that real fast. FanDuel, if you sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook and illegal sports betting state, take advantage of this bonus offer, this accurate bonus offer. Bet $20 on any market, get $200 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Massachusetts because you get a different bonus offer, a special bonus offer. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets. Had to correct that before we moved on. Means let's dive on over to a little DK talk now.
I get so much FOMO when I see all the new states open up.
I know.
Betting, and he's like, hey, if Jason Tatum scores a point, you win $100. I'm like,
yeah, it's. I just want to do like a country tour. I just want to go to every state where it opens and like take the bonuses. It's amazing.
Yeah. On the FanDuel thing for me with Houston, I didn't miss anything as far as like guys I need to talk about, because everyone's not projecting great, which isn't a surprise now that I think about it, because they're playing Boston.
Yeah.
And we moved Garuba into the projected starting lineup at the 5, and like these guys would be decent plays on a 4-game slate where things are a little thinned out, but they're just not going to hold a candle to all the other stuff we have tonight. So I didn't miss anything going through FanDuel, and I'm not going to mention them on DraftKings either. So, which we will talk about now. So pretty. I mean. Very, very straightforward builds tonight, especially on DraftKings. There's just 3 guards on DK that you do that I think you just go point guard, shooting guard, guard, and forget about it. And it's Killian, Hayes, Nembhard, and Hardy. Like there's really nothing else to talk about. So let me go through a couple of guys that you might be landing on in the util spot. And it's probably going to be expensive guys, unless it's like, because like a couple of the other good ones are small forwards, which I'll talk about, who would be Hardaway and Duarte. But I think just in general, like you're playing those three guys. So like if you're spinning up, maybe it would be like a Bane, DeJounte, Trey. Then like if you're getting into some late swap situations where you need to like move off of Giannis, I think Booker, you can play Booker and Curry and feel fine about it. Fox as well. He's 8'8". Like what a great price tag in this game environment. So it's tough to talk about anyone else because so much of where you're going to land on anyone else is going to be what you do elsewhere. But I think you're playing the three cheap guys and as the primary options and then moving on with more difficult decisions. So small forward, mentioned two of those guys. This is kind of like I'll call it a 4-man race for me. Like mid-tier to cheap, it's THJ, Josh Green, Duarte. And then expensive is Tatum. Like, I don't think there's really anyone else we need to be talking about. Maybe Anthony Edwards, but there's just not a lot of decisions. So let's go to power forward where it is a little more difficult. And this is another reason why Giannis is a factor. Is another reason the Giannis news is a factor. This is why I talked about the front, like because Tatum's there at power forward too. And maybe the call is just play Tatum. Like if it's 7:55 Eastern and you don't have Giannis news yet, just play Tatum. Like, and you don't want to deal with all that other stuff. I wouldn't blame anyone for doing that. There's no guarantee that one's right and one's wrong. So it's just you pigeonhole yourself a little bit into what you can do if you lock in Tatum, but that's better than like leaving $1,500 on the table, in my opinion. So
right, but it's risky with Tatum as well because he has massive blowout risk.
Yeah, and like maybe he gets like 40 something and 45, and you're like, all right, I'm all right with it, just because But
yeah, I mean, I get you.
I'm curious to see. I want to hear how like. There's like an obvious build on DraftKings that I think a lot of people would play if like news came out right now that Giannis is in. And I don't think people are going to play a lot because I think that news could go on for a while. So it's a really difficult decision, but I've talked about it enough. Tatum and Giannis are the spend ups, and then the cheap stuff is not that great of cheap stuff compared to the guards and the small forwards. So I'll mention them, but you're probably not playing them in the way I'm looking. I would say it's Omer Uri for the Pistons. He's probably going to start at the 4 since Bagley's out. And then Livers, who's 5'3", who will probably start at the 3. They'll probably both, they'll start at the 3 and the 4, however you want to classify them. Those are your cheap ones. Reggie Bullock at 3.7 is a cheap one. Kleba at 5'3 is a cheap one. Slow-mo in the middle of those, or in the middle of the expensive and the cheap is 6'1", but I think you're playing the expensive guy here. It's just a matter of who. So then center, pretty clearly, Isaiah Jackson is the obvious one. He's been obvious all day. And, like, we have him at 26 minutes. Just letting everyone know, like, don't be surprised if he plays more either. I mean, don't be surprised if he plays less either because he fouls a lot and it's a tanking team. But, like, he got his third foul at the 4-minute mark of the second quarter on Saturday, and they took him out for the rest of the game. His other rotations in the quarters are, like, spot on. Like, he would play, he would have played 29 and a half, 30 minutes. I think if he didn't get in foul trouble, and we have him at 26 and he's projecting awesome. So I think he's the clear play here, but like if you want to bump him up a little bit, you might appear in more of your builds and whatnot. So then other guys you're going to be laying on here, love Sabonis at 9.8. My concern is that Milwaukee's really good on the interior. They're really good rim protectors. Favorite for decent defensive player of the year, Brook Lopez, some guy named Giannis. If he plays, I heard he's good at defending the rim. There's a reason they're in the paint numbers are so good, but like Sabonis also does other stuff. Those guys won't always be on the court, et cetera, et cetera. Like they have a 121-point team total. I got to imagine Sabonis is going to have his role in a lot of that if they sniff that. So I really like him at 9.8. You can also go Gobert if he plays. Trying to look at some other stuff that I haven't mentioned. That's probably it, honestly. I think you're going Jackson, Sabonis, Giannis has it, Gobert. Yeah, kind of a small race for me there.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk tournaments. By the way, smash that like button. You're getting great free content thanks to our sponsor, Fanduel, by that guy and this guy down here. Ice, let's talk about your tournament build over on DK. We got 500 people watching, so there should be roughly 500 or so likes. Ice, what are your general thoughts here? Kind of walk me through a build. I'm sure it's similar to your thoughts on FanDuel, but maybe if you could go a little position by position as well, that would help.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very similar to FanDuel. One situation that we haven't talked much about yet is that Rudy Gobert questionable tag. So I just wanted to mention that right off the top. Like Naz Reid is going to become one of the best value plays on the slate if Rudy Gobert does get ruled out. So make sure you get some. And if we don't get that news in the next 16 minutes here, like he's going to be completely unknown because everybody's just going to be jamming in Isaiah Jackson. So make sure you're building with some Naz Reid right now.
Is this important enough where no matter what, like leave your util for a later game so that you can give yourself some flexibility? Like, is he the best play on the slate? If the news breaks,
he would be like top 3. Hardy is certainly up there. Nembhard is up there, and Naz Reid is right there in that conversation. Absolutely, he's 4,400. Isaiah Jackson's 4,600. I believe Naz Reid is slightly better per minute than Jackson. So yeah, I mean he's going to be right in that conversation with.
Yeah. And we'll play more minutes too.
Right. Yeah. I think I forgot the what if it's like 32 minutes or something. He's projected for maybe 34. So yeah, he's going to be out there a ton, and he does a bunch per minute. Just wanted to cover that situation a little bit. Position by position here. A lot of what I'm looking at is going to be in the high end range because I mentioned like I'm playing Nembhard, I'm playing Killian Hayes, I'm playing Jaden Hardy. That leaves not a lot of guard spots available, but I do think that you play two of those guys instead of all 3 of them together, and then pay up for like Devin Booker is one of my favorite plays on the slate. De'Aaron Fox at 8,800, absolutely love that. Even Chris Paul, Jalen Green, I'm sprinkling in a little bit just because I think so many lineups are going to have all 3 of those guards.
Yeah.
Just play 2 of them and spend up for one of your other guard spots. Jaylen Brown at shooting guard, Anthony Edwards at shooting guard. Like just go up for one of those guys instead of going all cheap guys in those spots. I think
that's so good. You gave me the chills. I got the chills hearing that. I was like, that's the play. Just play 2 of those guys and then spend up. Yes, that's the move.
Yep. Moving on to some forwards. Jimmy Butler, like one of these Miami guys, Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, is going to smash in this spot. Utah is a team that we've targeted all year. They're not great on the defensive end. Like Butler's 8,700. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up north of 50 fantasy points in this spot. And he's coming in at like 10% ownership. Let's see here. I mentioned Edwards at guard. You can play him at small forward as well. Like I'm playing Hardaway. I think I don't like necessarily need to double the field on somebody like that because he's not as cheap as the guards, but he's still in a fantastic spot, has a great chance to absolutely smash in this spot. So more of like a get 10% over the field rather than jam him in every single lineup. Josh Green, like you guys were talking about it a little bit, he's just coming in under owned because there's so much great value. Who's to say that he's not going to outscore all this other 4K value? So showing under 20%, grab yourself 40% of Josh Green. I think that's a great way to play that situation. Isaiah Livers, like I know it's not a comfortable play. The price tag is coming up, but like who's going to shoot the ball for Detroit? Like he's going to have way more opportunities than he generally does. Let's see here. A couple of power forwards. Jaren Jackson Jr. I didn't mention Tyus Jones at point guard either. I do want to get his name out there. Like the price tag is adjusted for the no Ja Morant situation, but Tyus Jones or Jaren Jackson Jr. could absolutely go off in this spot as well. Love those guys as tournament plays. I think they have massive ceilings. Let's see here. Al Horford is just kind of a mid-range play. I think a lot of people are going down cheap and then up big. Like a lot of mid-range plays are going to go overlooked. So a guy like Al Horford showing under 10%, don't mind that.
He's got huge upside, man. That guy puts up monster games.
Yeah, I mean, no Robert Williams, and he's got Houston. Like it's a fantastic spot. Harrison Barnes, not a guy that you love to play, but this is going to be a competitive game. He's going to be out there for 35 plus minutes. You're making that face, but he's 8% owned, and he can go for 40 fantasy points. You'll take that at 5K.
Sure.
That's about it. Kleber at 3,500 is, I think, they're totally fine to take some shots there. If you do want to try to spend up for a couple of studs, he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other guys. He lets you do a few things different, so don't mind that. And then some center guys. Xavier Tillman is one guy that I like a decent amount, 5,900. I mentioned Ayton, really like him tonight. Just nobody's going that route. I think everybody's paying up for like Tatum or Giannis, or they're paying up Trae Young, Devin Booker types. Ayton, nobody's playing him because you've got Isaiah Jackson really cheap. Rudy Gobert, another guy that's not getting a ton of ownership. And then I mentioned the Detroit guys like Wiseman and Duren. Their prices have come up, and it's uncomfortable because they're probably not going to share the court together, but either one of them could absolutely smash. The matchup against Indiana is fantastic. So really like both of the Detroit guys. And I haven't really looked into the Houston guys much. Let me take a quick look there. Like Tari Eason is projected for 26.5 minutes. He could play 30 minutes in this spot, and he's been playing awesome lately. Really tough matchup, but I like Tari Eason as a pivot, and Jabari Smith as well. Again, we don't know that starting lineup yet either. A chance those guys could potentially start together, so that would just bump their minutes up even further from where we have them right now. So I do like both of the Houston guys also, even in a tough matchup.
Okay, real quick, how many lineups are you playing tonight?
20.
20. Okay, is that your usual? You generally play 20?
Yeah, like 25 really. I'll play the single entry stuff, and then the 20 max is generally what I'm doing on a per night.
Okay, I think that helps when you start naming these guys. You know, it's like, all right, are you playing 150 guys? Because then the randos that you're naming are a little different. So I think 20. It's good to know that. Right.
I certainly would not play Harrison Barnes in a single entry, but in the 20 max, I don't mind taking one lineup and taking a shot on Harrison Barnes, who at 5K, if he puts up 40 fantasy points, he could be a difference maker at 5% owned or whatever.
Gotcha. Poker Pro Eric says Wood season, and I think does he have the questionable tag and
barely played on Saturday in the same situation. Yeah. He just got ruled out. He literally just got ruled out.
Well, there you have it. Yeah. There you go. So I guess with him out, maybe that is more of a bump to a guy like Maxi Kleber, because he might get 35 minutes or something. Who the hell knows with that rotation though? I don't know.
You ain't playing those guys. You're playing
You're right.
You're playing Hardy. You're playing THJ. You're playing Josh Green. Filtering in Bullock and Kleber and whatnot, but yeah. Are you laughing at the play on words there by our wonderful production crew?
It's so good. I would not play him. Yeah, that made me laugh. Yeah,
I was going to make a flaccid joke, but we'll just leave it like
that. All right, let's see. We got about 10 minutes for some QQs, and I think we dive right into it. We're going to the RG Discord. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button over there if you're for those of you watching on YouTube, which I suppose is all of you. FanDuel GPP from Mike.
Roth,
is it okay?
Roth, real quick, one thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to. I got the Zoom on this. This is not going to be that good. I promise. When I started talking about Nas, I just wanted to point out, like, I'm sure most people know this, but that game starts in 40 minutes or locks in 40 minutes. So, like, if we don't get the Gobert thing soon in 9 minutes, then it's going to be coming like immediately after that. Like, it should be hitting one way or another soon.
Right. It's going to hit right around lock, whether it's like 2 minutes before lock or 2 minutes after lock. It's going to, which makes, makes things very interesting. Rad Dad Fanny Pack says, where are you fellas subscribed to for injury news? We're subscribed to us, RotoGrinders. We send out alerts. So download our app, and then the alerts come up on your phone.
He's like, damn, how did he get that news so fast that Wood was out?
Yeah, there you go. So make sure you're doing that. It's just one of the many advantages of having the best app in the biz. Back to the QQs now. Jumping into the RG Discord, the question was, well, this is a real question from Mike. FanDuel GPP, with Şengün out, is it Boban season, or do we go with Frank the Tank or Garuba? I had to ask it because there was a Boban reference for real. You can't play him.
I mean, I don't want to say you can't, because if the guy gets 15 minutes, he could absolutely smash.
And they're 15-point dogs, man. Yeah.
But on another slate, yes.
Yeah.
Like on a 3-game slate, his 15 minutes could get you there. But on this slate, I feel like there's so much value.
Oh, you best believe his 15 minutes could get you there on this slate. You better believe they could. It's
He
just
can
will
put
you
up
play
30 plus in
minutes.
15.
Yeah.
Like he can do that. He can. And full disclosure, I am playing him. Just kind of for a bit.
Like Isaiah Jackson is power forward, so you can play him with Isaiah Jackson. Like if Jackson was center only, it would be a different conversation.
Yeah.
But because you can play them both, like he's the one you really worry about as far as like it's hard to see him fail. Center's not that strong. I don't hate it.
Don't do it. I'm doing
Roth,
it.
you're not committed to the bit. You're financially committed to the bit.
Yeah, right.
That's like extra committed.
He's gonna get like 7 minutes, and he's gonna do fine. He's gonna get you 12 points, and that's not gonna get you there. But
I will say, if Gobert gets ruled out, then you cannot do it.
Yeah, there you go. That's fair. All right, let's see. Scrolling down. Okay, here we go. Mike says, FanDuel GPP. Is it okay to just play one side of the Indy? He calls it the Indy versus Pacers Scrubathon.
Play one, so just have one team? Is that?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's pricing isn't as great, so I could see a way that there's a Detroit player that just does not quite get there. I don't think I would completely fade Indiana. Like, somebody on Indiana is paying off their price. It's likely somebody on Detroit does as well, but I don't think you're crazy to not have one Detroit player.
Okay. T. Jackson, FanDuel Cash means Green and Gobbert or Duarte Bam. It's Green and Gobbert if he plays, right? Is it? I don't know. You answer.
And you will have that news. Who is the other one with Bam?
Duarte.
Duarte locks right away. So, yeah, just I'm sure there's someone you can figure out some sort of pivot. Like I would do the Gobert one, because then if Gobert doesn't play, then you play Nas at center and then figure out some other stuff. Yeah, so I would do that one. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. NBA DFS, FanDuel Cash, Liver Alone, and Edwards or Duarte Butler.
Man, I would probably do those are two guys that both lock, so I would do the Duarte one.
Are we that interested in Duarte? I got back-to-back Duarte questions. Is he making the cut for you, Means? Yeah. He's getting the nod. Okay. All right. Steve-O, Gobert versus Quinn Snyder revenge game? He says kind of a stretch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez.
I don't understand the reference.
Snyder used to coach.
Quinn Snyder's the coach of so like, I mean, I don't think he's going to be too vengeful, because I think Snyder got like about the most out of Gobert you can get, right? Like, I mean, no. And Gobert also like needs plays called for him, so it's kind of out of his hands.
Okay. Big Melvy has a great question that I want to address right after lock. So we'll get to that question in the YouTube chat after lock. Great question. We will discuss that shortly. In the meantime, FanDuel Cash, Green over Hardaway. I don't know, man. Like THJ is probably going to score more real points, but it's the other stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from the raw perspective.
Yeah.
I would say THJ is probably, I don't even know if I want to say that. I was going to say safer, but like, is he safer?
Because if he doesn't score points, he ain't getting shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's just raw projection, I still would lean Hardaway slightly, but man, it is closer than people think probably.
Mm-hmm, yeah. FanDuel Cash 2v2. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's an ant. Yeah, it's an ant emoji. Ant-Man and Giannis or Tatum and Sabonis. FanDuel Cash.
Ant-Man, Giannis, Tatum, Sabonis. You have to make that decision by 7:30 Eastern. So unless there's other things you can figure out. All things, if I knew everyone was playing, if I knew Giannis was playing, I would probably do the Giannis one. But we won't. I don't know when we know that.
Okay. J Sam says Duran, and we've mentioned him a couple times, has been playing pretty well off the bench since he's been back. Any interest in him? I don't know. I think this is if Giannis is out.
I don't know why Giannis would matter. For
No, I don't know.
Briefly,
Is that what he said?
I'm sorry. Can briefly talk about Bucks if Giannis is out, FanDuel. I don't know if that's related or not. Duren's been playing good so far off the bench this season back. Any interest in him was the core.
Separate
portion.
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe separate thoughts.
Duren in tournaments, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right. FanDuel single entry, Hayes and Bam or Ice, Trey, and Josh Green.
Hayes and Bam or Trey and Green?
Yep.
Give me the first one there.
All right. Less than 2 minutes until lock. Make sure you get those lineups in. Steve-O says, why is nobody talking about Tyus Jones tonight? He's going to go for 50 points on DK.
I did circle
Memes?
back and mention him
Nice.
briefly, but yeah, the price is way up there, but he absolutely could still go for 50.
Very good. Caton says, I'm trying to get away from the optimal in single entry FanDuel GPP. Should I play Giannis and Brown instead of Tatum and Sabonis, or should I try to get different by getting off of one of the cheap Mavs guards? You got a preference?
I think playing Jaylen Brown is a great way to get away from Tatum.
Okay. Ball says DK Cash means if we don't get Gobert news, do we just lock in Duarte?
Yeah, I feel strongly enough about Gobert playing that yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All right. I feel like there's pivots. I don't know.
Don't make that face. You're playing Boban.
I am. That was in my head. I was like, just play Boban. What's the problem here? All right. Let's see. Less than a minute until lock. DK Cash, Trey and Naz Reid or Duarte Saboner?
Yeah, I think you got to play Duarte at this point because you got to make that decision in 37 seconds or whatever.
Well, Kareem, this is a good way to bring it into lock, says, just so you know, Duarte might have his hands full cleaning his mattress after shitting the bed the other night. I don't know what happened the other night, but apparently it didn't go well for Duarte. Oh, man, that one got me. Let's see what we got. Miles Kelly says, avoid that Celtics game, boys. Blowout for sure. Ice, is that something that you're kind of putting some thoughts and some stock into and some action behind? Like, are you worried enough about it that you're limiting exposure to some of those higher-owned guys? Or higher price guys?
I mean, Tatum's really the only one, and I am underweight on Tatum, but I think that there's still like Jaylen Brown is, first of all, cheaper than Tatum, so he doesn't need to do as much. Like Brown getting there in a blowout and Tatum failing is not out of the question. So I'm overweight on Jaylen Brown, but I am underweight on Tatum.
Okay. This is maybe my favorite take that I've seen so far today from Michael Dixon. People sleeping on that Houston-Boston game. Boston defense is trash. I don't know about that, and they play slow. But he says Kevin Porter about to go off. Do you have any interest? Do you have any Kevin Porter, any KPJ?
I mean, maybe one lineup. I think I would rather target the big situation, the Jabari Smith, Tari Eason group. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Porter can score a bunch in a hurry. So I don't know. Tough matchup. Like Marcus Smart.
Those are two drastically different takes on that game. Are those two people fighting right now in the chat? Because one of them said, don't even touch that game. The next one said something about someone being trash and everyone's going off. So
that's true. Yeah. You guys fight it out to the death. Let us know who wins. Derek says Gobert news in 3, 2, 1, and our phones blow up now. Here was the question that I got that I wanted to get back to. It was Big Melvy, and I'll give this one to you as you are kind of a guru of our tech here. I don't know. Meansy, you're pretty techie as well, as you told me I can put in lineups from my computer. It's amazing.
How do you get snarky when you don't get snarky with me because you said you can't make a lineup if your phone battery dies.
I absolutely forgot that I could do it on my computer, to be honest with you. I haven't done it in like a year and a half. Big Melvy says, how do you create a rule if one guy plays, the other does not when they're from the same team?
So you do that under player groups.
So in what tool? Where would you find such a thing?
In Lineup HQ under player
who
groups.
has that? What is there is there like
RotoGrinders.com.
There we are. All right.
Lineup HQ, you put both of them in a group, and then you can do 0-1, or if like in the Indiana big situation, like I think there's more than likely one of those guys is going off. So if you wanted to include one of Indiana's bigs, Jalen Smith, or Isaiah Jackson in every single lineup, then you do one of those guys.
There you go. I personally, I've never done it. I don't know what that meant, but people who have done it probably, it's easy. It's intuitive to some degree, right? I don't think it's the hardest thing.
So I have like 30 groups probably on a given night.
There you go. So yeah, this is a thing that all the good players really do. Well, let's end it on this one. Hoosiers Hang Banner says, Means, do you have a take on Duke's region? I saw one of our other content providers had a strong take on Duke's region, right? Was it Fear? Yeah.
Yeah. Fear My Turtle is Maryland homer. And he apparently still is harboring some ill will towards the Dukies back from his ACC Maryland days. And just off the cuff. Oh, obviously they got a great draw.
Of course. Dukie's got the easiest draw. And then in parentheses, of course.
Yeah. Let's just let's get pan over to the camera of the selection committee. Like, okay, guys, how are we going to get Duke the best?
News breaking. Gobert is in.
And Naz Reid is out. What? I've got some switching around to do.
I got some moves to make here, boys.
Gobert's playing, man. F this, I ain't playing.
Yeah. All right. Well, like you said, Ice, you mentioned Gobert would, if he plays, he's a good play, right? He's a solid tournament play.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Means Duke gonna win it all since they got that soft spot in the tournament.
No.
Is Houston gonna win it all? Because apparently the Houston Cougs, where I live, where I'm repping right now, may or may not have the best team in college basketball. Anyone who knows college basketball more than me? They
got worked by my Memphis Tigers yesterday.
They didn't have their best player.
Huh? Maybe they don't win for the tournament.
He's supposed to be back, apparently, from what I've heard from the streets. The streets are talking. They say he's going to be
Houston streets.
Yeah. I keep my ear to the streets here locally. All right. Hey, with that, we are going to bounce on out of here. So for Means, for Ice, for our wonderful production team, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love it. We will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.